It is now, however, 13 minutes past, and I'd like to welcome you to this special event, this AEE International Virtual Conference Review. My name's Pete Smith, founder Orator Telemarker, and you are inside the Outhaus for another time. Just before we get started, just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country in this land that is called Australia and their connection to water, land and communities. And I would like to offer inside the Outhaus as respect for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of this land, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to recognize the amazing work of the Outhaus orators to keep this project rolling along and looking really great. Without any further ado, let's get into a casual discussion about the AEE virtual conference. Over to you, David.
Throw me straight under the
right under the pump.
Right under the pump there as I try and let other people in. All right. I'm gonna just feature both of us here for a bit, Pete. The AEE conference, International Virtual Conference. This is our second review. We had a review about approximately this time last year of the first virtual conference, the first attempt by the Association of Experiential Education in 2020 due to the pandemic and the fact that we couldn't gather together physically, and they've done it again this year, and they've done it with what I would consider great professionalism and with an amazing ability to connect actually internationally the outdoor education and experiential education sector. I was just going to bring up my notes real quick. They had 4 days of conferencing, starting for us in East Coast Australian time around midnight on, I think it was Thursday evening. 550 attendees from 23 countries, over 100 speakers and presenters through 80 workshops, and forming a community that had a focus and a theme of celebrating our common roots, but our many branches. So we figured we'd have a bit of a chat today about how we found the conference. For me, initially, I came off a day of work, and it was pretty hard to be effervescent and excited about it at midnight and 1 o'clock and 2 a.m. By about 2:30 in the morning on the first day, I actually fell asleep because I did the rookie move of lying down for 10 minutes. And missed most of the rest of the Active EE, which is the opening presentations. Those links are now available through YouTube, and they're actually on our website under the resources section. So inside the outhouse.org, go to resources and scroll down to the AEE section, which has all been updated. The rest of the conference was really good. Myself on the Gold Coast, I checked into a hotel. They had the conference feel, but also I've had myself a really good Wi-Fi, a quiet space to engage with the content and be able to talk at 2 o'clock in the morning to people and not upset my housemate. So it was yeah, it was sort of exactly as I experienced last year, but just smoother. The Zoom sessions were really well orchestrated by volunteers supporting the presenters. The online community, the Gather space, Gather Town, which was a virtual space to go and involve and wander around and look at the sponsors' booths and keynote areas, and basically just to wander around and bump into people that maybe you've seen at the presentations, so in the Zoom sessions, and then to have a random chat with those folks. So it was an amazing opportunity to network without actually physically being there. And in a virtual environment and in a time when, especially here in Australia, we've had limited professional development, it was a great opportunity, and I really enjoyed myself.
And speaking from the person who is perhaps the less technical of the two, I actually was able to sort out Gathertown fairly easily and move around and talk to people. So I also think it was a great resource.
We'll talk specific about some of the those are my initial thoughts. Both me and Pete went to different workshops, different presentations. And
if you don't mind, Dave, could I just have a couple of initial thoughts? I thought that the thing that I really I think appreciated most whilst getting up at midnight and going to bed quite sort of late in the mid-morning was the fact that people were just so welcoming, and it was such a connected, collaborative kind of community. And I really appreciated the fact that we were all of the workshops and all of the keynote sessions and all of the research sessions were done as Zoom meetings. So you could interact not only with the audience, but with the presenter or presenters in that case. And I don't know about you, because it was such a massive conference, I was in workshops with like 8 people. And so it was a very intimate way to, I would suggest, interact with researchers and experts in the field of experiential education. You know, I've been blown away by the way it was run in an online world, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree, Pete. It was, I guess, somewhat disappointing, I guess, when I went into a workshop with Jim Kane, who is the author of about 25 books in the outdoor education facilitation space, and is quite a bit of a hero of mine and a big wheel at these conferences. And he only had about 5 people in the Zoom meeting that he facilitated, talking about virtual space facilitation. But it didn't actually matter. It meant that you could ask direct questions. You could definitely drive the conversation if you had a particular way that, or some points that you wanted to make about different issues. And yeah, you made really good connections really quickly, I think, because you weren't in a room full of 40 people and all competing sort of for a bit of a time with someone like that. And Jim wasn't the only one in terms of sort of celebrities that we met.
And then the other thing that really impressed me, like, again, blew me away as the non-technical person I am, was the people's use of interactive technology in Zoom rooms to make the audience feel like they're in the same classroom as the person delivering the presentation.
Yeah. So again, there was a lot of usage of the Google platform in that regards. So a lot of collaborative spaces where people went in and I can't remember what the name of that platform was. That was Google, but where you could go in and post things concurrently at the same time. And because it was shared through Zoom as a screen, you could see people interacting and not just using the Zoom annotate features, but definitely using another platform within the Zoom environment to actually drive collaboration and to brainstorm ideas about subjects that were being talked about. Do we want to move on to some specific stuff, Pete, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think so, Dave.
Maybe you want to share your screen and we'll start from there.
Okay, I'll see if I can do that. That hasn't worked, has it?
No, you're sharing your background there, I think.
Okay.
Just unshare it and try again.
I think what I need to do is actually.
Do you feel like you got as much out of it being a virtual versus an in-person conference?
Do I feel like I've got as much out of it?
Yeah, both of you.
And I answer it and Pete works on his screen sharing.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going
to... I think I did because, again, I think this year we haven't had enough, or for the last 2 years in Australia, we haven't had enough connection with people in the industry, and to actually talk with people who have the same values and are closely aligned with your values, your goals, your own work experience, I think is really valuable, even if it's through a Zoom session like this. And yeah, it's a reflection almost of what we've been doing with inside the Outhaus, of connecting the outdoor community in a time of pandemic, but also in the almost normal time now that we're all double vaxxed and all that type of stuff. Being able to have a conference experience at a really reasonable price, I think it was about $85 US. That and there was a sliding scale there, but that was about the max that you needed to pay in order to get this much content. In terms of stuff, there was a strong American flavor around virtual facilitation and how to do that still, but there were topics around Duke of Ed programming out of the UAE that I attended. There was workshops on facilitating experiential reading and reflection in the field from a university, again, in the States, and reflecting on the fact that this university has created a whole platform to give free to the industry. Stuff like that you just don't hear about unless you go to a conference. Doing it via Zoom, I think, or through a virtual platform is still a valid way to do it. And when you've got the tyranny of distance and the cost of doing a distance flight to America or to anywhere at the moment, it seems, it just makes more sense. How are we doing, Pete?
Yeah, I think I'm maybe ready to go. I think I've
jump on in. I'm just stalling for you there.
Cherie, in answer to your question really quickly, I think I like the fact that it's sustainable. You can connect with people from a variety of locations really easily, and you know, I just think that those things are pretty good. So now I don't know where this is. Maybe I'm just not going to share my screen.
Oh, come on.
All right, I cannot minimize Zoom while recording a meeting. So the room is filled with technical people and then me.
I might, while Pete still works on it, Maddie, do you have any questions, or were you at the conference? I know there were other Australians at the conference apart from me and Pete. We just didn't encounter anyone else.
Yeah, I was at the conference.
I thought I'd seen, somebody from Kinglake or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also,
how was your experience?
Yeah, it was great. Although I agree with you, some of the later or the earlier ones were a bit tough to make it to. I'd also come off a big week doing camp stuff and work. But Cole, my boss, actually presented at the conference on,
really?
I think it was a Saturday morning session. So yeah, I assisted with that, which was really good as well.
Excellent. Was that your first conference or sort of big conference experience?
Yeah, it was. And I would have liked to have gone to more, but I thought it was awesome, as I don't think I would have had the opportunity to go in real life because of work, but because it was on Zoom, it allowed me to go to some of them, and now having access to some recordings as well, I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, I've actually watched maybe 3 or 4 of the videos since the thing. Here we go. Pete's on it now.
Nice.
So we'll come back to you, Maddie. Pete, you want to speak through what you've got here?
I want to listen to what Maddie was saying.
Well, that was about it for me. I think it's 3 ticks and a double thumbs up. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I guess my first slide is just a bit of a promotional slide. This is me in a room with sort of 40 other people talking about Inside the Outhaus as a project. And these people are from all around the world. And I feel proud of having to had the foresight to have screen captured this particular thing for future prosperity of the Outhaus. Anyway, I'll move along. One thing that really inspired me was the Kurt Hahn address, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the Mario and Kurt Hahn address is a keynote address at the AEE conference, which is delivered by an experiential educator of some repute, and it was delivered this year by Dr. Meng Sheng Yap, who hails out of Singapore. And it's an hour and 40 minutes long, and it's available on YouTube, and Dave has put the link up on our website. So I'm not going to really go through the address blow by blow, but I just wanted to point out this, which is a particularly nice message from the Department of Government in Singapore that coordinates education, probably one of the most important things we do in society, I would suggest. And they are in fact molding the future of the nation in Singapore. And I would question whether we could put a similar label with our education system. Moving on. I just purely like this particular definition of experiential learning. And I think if you don't want to read the whole slide, I think the part in yellow is particularly relevant and pertinent to our time and education in general, in, out, and around the natural world. Moving on. You know, most people who are experiential educators know that, here's me not realizing what's going on again. I just think that these generic skills and competencies, which when Dr. Yap was talking to us, he was suggesting that these are shared across all parts of the university in every course, from essentially first year through to graduation. And I think that was a particularly nice way to integrate the experiential experience into the wider education system. And to that end, I think the development of lifelong learning was a very big part of his message, and I think that's probably a very critical part of the whole situation. So in summary, and yeah, as I said, I'm not going to repeat the address. If you're interested in this type of subject matter, then go and listen to it for yourself. But I really liked what he said in closing about how he sees the integration of the experience into the wider education of the community and society. And I think we could all take a lot away from that. Do you want to go now, Dave? I have a couple of other slides, but they apply to Meg Bulger's talk on why people are wrong.
Yeah, I might just grab the screen share from you, Pete. And,
okay, well, I'll stop sharing. I'll need to work out how I have to do it again sometime later.
Okay, so I'm just going to show people just to vary it up a little bit. Again, for our audience that might watch this afterwards to see if there's a value. Next year's conference is in, I think, might correct me, Pete, North Carolina, and it is a face-to-face conference. So, but there is. The AEE has really recognized that there's a value in being an international organization and definitely looking to keep part of the conference as a virtual space, both to allow internationals to attend, but also obviously to embrace the wider audience yeah, within the States and around. This is what the, if you can all see this, hopefully pretty well, this is what the attendee dashboard looks like. You log in. And this is now being changed a little bit, but it's pretty much the same from when the conference was actually occurring. It basically gives you a, sorry, I'm getting feedback. I'm not sure if that's you, Pete. Might be me. Okay, I'll keep going. It gives you a how-to tutorial that they've put together on how to use the platform and how to use and yeah, all the things that are going on, where to start. And again, this has been updated a little bit about all the things you can now watch. We have access to the platform and until the 1st of January 2022. So as a value proposition for an international conference with 80 workshops and over 100 presenters talking, there's a lot of content there that I still haven't watched, and Pete's probably the same. And then if I just scroll down here, these are sort of big buttons that they give you that you can basically connect. You could have a calendar that was happening, gather together in Gathertown, live workshops. The SEER presentations were academic presentations that didn't really engage me too much. But basically, let's get rid of that, sorry. it gives you a bit of an idea of what the platform looked like. It was very robust. I think they had a little bit of teething problems initially, obviously some code of conduct stuff there at the bottom, but you know, it was really well put together and an amazingly robust and easy to use platform. I'm just going to get out of there. Yeah, stop sharing. I'll come back to Peter myself. Maybe we'll jump into some of the presentations we thought were really good, Pete.
Well, as I said, I went to this presentation by this amazing lady called Meg Bulger, and she was presenting on, I guess, the wrong assumption and how to deal with conflict within the experiential setting and when facilitating, and you don't necessarily see eye to eye with that person. And her presentation was absolutely inspiring. And I'm just going to do a little bit of screen sharing again. One, to test my technical skills, and two, to go to my other slides. Look at me. Anyway, I'm just going to move forward to the next slide, which should be Meg's slide. Okay. So she has this theory, and it's been garnered from the community, from other people, but she points out that there's always a set of unfortunate assumptions that are made when people are making people wrong in situations. And you can read all about this on the resources that are in on the Outhaus website, or which Dave will direct you to later. But the first of these is the ignorance assumption. So you assume that the other people or person just doesn't understand the situation fully. So they just, once they understand the situation, they'll stop being ignorant and be able to see your viewpoint. The second assumption, the idiocy assumption, is the assumption that the person is just too silly or too stupid to actually understand the situation. And if they perhaps had a bit more, nous about themselves and could understand the situation a bit better, then you would perhaps see it more eye to eye. And the last assumption, and probably the thing when Meg presented it, probably the most scary for me, is the evil assumption, which you just simply assume that the other person involved in this situation is simply an evil person and you'll never see eye to eye. So she started sort of this off using this amazing technology, this technology above called AHA Slides. And it's an interactive piece of technology which you can use in Zoom presentations to both have audience interaction. And so I also advise you to check that out a little bit. We'll just go to the next slide because I'm a bit conscious of time and not taking up all the time on Meg, although she was quite amazing. I think what I really liked is how she used these AHA slides, and this is just the summary on the screen now, and this is people just brainstorming right into the slide about their thoughts from Meg's session. So I just mainly put that up for the AHA slides thing, so I'll move on. But Meg, one of her main influences was the work of, oh no. You laugh it up, Dave.
There you go,
right.
You got it.
No, I'm doing funny things. Right. So she has this idea of the 5 needs, or well, this guy William Glasser has suggested in this choice theory that he has these 5 needs, and I'll just point those out to you, and then I'll perhaps hand over to Dave. Are there any questions about this and this presentation? Did anyone, Maddie, did you see this presentation? Thoughts?
I wasn't in this one, Pete. Sorry, I missed this one.
Okay.
There's a question in the chat from Greg in relation to Glassness 1. Is it related to Glassness or Maslow? I think is what he's meaning there.
Oh, Glasser, this guy, William Glasser, just has a theory around choice, Greg, I guess I'd argue. And he has these 5 basic needs, which is part of the his theory of choice. Now, how that relates to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm not really sure. I'm not a psychological expert or a Glasser person, but I was just impressed. And if you want to go to the links, there's more reading on the word of Glasser in the links.
Cool. I might keep the conversation going. This is we've put all the links that we've been able to find, and some of the links were actually shared within the Zoom session, so they're actually hard to find. So if you go to our website, insidetheouthouse.org, and under resources, you'll see, we'll just scroll up here. So there's a bit of a blurb. There's the 2 keynotes. They're linked and are available freely on YouTube. They're not in any behind any paywall at the moment. Two I actually point out to you. Michelle Cummings, who was probably known to a lot of people from her presentations both in Australia and overseas, has been quite a big wheel in the training wheels environment for many, many years. She's created this amazing piece of, can you see the Training Wheels website? Yep. Okay, cool. So she was talking about, again, facilitating in a virtual environment for those people who are either still in lockdown or physically can't come together to do facilitation. And she's created a portal within her own website, which is freely available. And has some amazing things like what I'm just going to demonstrate here very briefly. So if I put in David and I put in Pete and I put in, let me go Maddie, and if I put in Cherie. So she's created this little wheel of names. So basically it's a randomization game in order to get people to process or to debrief. Right. So again, if you think about it, we used to do this in a physical sense by throwing a ball to somebody and then asking them to share something about how they're feeling about their day or about the start of the day or the end of the day. But you can now do it through a process using this thing here. So we're going to spin it. And I'm selected. So I now need to speak or present. Okay. All right. So, and you can then remove David, and I only have the 3 people left who now need to actually, who's it going to come up to? Maddie. So Maddie now needs to share something about how her day been. Maddie, share something about your day. All right. So you get the idea. So it's an amazing little resource in a virtual environment. I could see myself using this even in the context of working within an Australian context where we don't need to socially isolate and we're able to, for all the things that have been going on, this would still be a cool tool to use. And then she has a bunch of icebreaker wheelies. I'm not going to go through it. Again, the link is in there. Debriefing questions are in here as well. Story wheels, all right, and dice games, which I think Pete would love. So where you are, is a whole bunch of, you roll the dice. Number 2, so I then asked Pete, what is the best conversations you've ever had? And then Pete has to answer that. So it's a dice breaker. It's like an icebreaker, but it's in the virtual environment.
With you about tech, Dave. With you about tech.
It's all about tech. All right, I'm going to go to the last page if I can just can see what I'm looking at here. Here we go, that one there. And so that was one presentation, and then I jumped into another one that I didn't think I had a lot of engagement with, but it turns out it's an amazing piece of technology that's been created by a group at the University of, let me just scroll down, Sorry, at Brigham Young University. Don't ask me where that is. They've created they talked about the theory and practice of reflection in the outdoors, and how, as outdoor professionals, when we're asked, or we ask teachers to design or to support students who are being asked to do reflective practices in the field, sometimes we don't have a lot of ideas and a lot of resources around that. A couple of PhD students, a couple of undergraduates, and a professor all got into this presentation and talked about this particular, sorry, I've now lost it. Let me just stop share and go back again. I'll just go back to that one. And there we go. So under experientialwriting.byu.edu, again, the link's on our webpage. They've created a whole website about what it is to do experiential reflection through a writing, journaling, or however you might conceive it. They've got a bunch of program ideas about study abroad, field study, education and adventure therapy, K through 12 classrooms, undergraduate research. So different ideas, different ways to do it. They talk about, designing assessment tools. So if you're using the actual journaling in your outdoor program as an accessible item, how would you design a tool for that? Determining objectives, all right? And again, there's a whole bunch of videos here, which I'm not going to get into, but it's all well, as you can see, all well based upon research and academic rigor, I guess. So those are a couple of amazing.
Tell you what, the whole conference seems to be about hierarchies, with Bloom's hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy, and Glass's, not hierarchy, but his basic needs.
I'm just going to go back to our webpage. So if you have a look here, I've got Michelle Cummings staff, Brigham Young University. Jeff Ballirum, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Verastar. He's doing a lot of promotion about risk management at the moment. He has some links there, mostly to his own products, but had a really good presentation around risk management, and how risk management is still very much what we're still doing the classic risk management diagrams of an Excel spreadsheet, and you've got your controls and your mitigating factors, and then that lowers it, and how that modeling of risk management is so last year, or last century almost in some respects, and that a systems informed approach, which a lot of Australians, Claire Dallett being one, and a couple of researchers out of the University of the Sunshine Coast, have been looking at and doing a lot of work on, is where the actual industry should be pushing, and you should be looking at your risk management from a holistic organizational perspective, as opposed to just looking at a causal effect of being, whether or not the rope fails or whether or not you have a bus accident. It's bigger than that. As I said, I was in a presentation with Jim Kane, Dr. Jim Kane. I've just shared some links to his websites there. And the last two ones there I've got is Ryan Carlson from the Wilderness Educators Association, and Steve Pace. I might just bring that one up, see if that works before I bore everyone to tears. And basically there's a link here again to a Google Drive. There's a promotion for their in-face wilderness conference. The WEA, the Wilderness Education Association, and I'm just going to stop sharing because I hate looking at that. They're all about credentialing outdoor educators as individuals within the American context. And they're very much, they've been building their program up for about 25 to 30 years, not quite as long as the AEE. AEE celebrates its 50th birthday next year. But they have a program that's really robust and looks exactly like what a lot of the national summit discussions have been talking about in terms of, in this country, how do we credential individuals who are outdoor education operators? How do we certify and check that their competencies are at the right bar? How do we measure competency? How do we assure quality of the program delivery? The WEA have gone ahead and packaged up a complete program that talks to that. Similarly, the AEE has their own.
Just hang on a second, Dave.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask the room a question. So in Australia, I guess, where most of the room is at least coming at us from, do people think that that is what universities and TAFE colleges and other RTOs that are facilitating outdoor recreation courses are doing? And is that enough accreditation for the Australian market, given our population and the diversity of the state system?
Pete, can you just reiterate what you just asked?
I just, in summary, I guess I'm asking, are universities and TAFE colleges in Australia currently in 2021 and beyond delivering a level of accreditation that people who are working in the experiential sector, the outdoor education sector, the outdoor camps, the outdoor recreation sector, are both happy with and satisfied with?
It's a great question. I think in some ways, yes, but it's very different than the kind of accreditation that I think Dave is talking about. Or it's like, it's accrediting people rather than organizations. Is that what I understand the WAEA accreditation?
Yeah, that's correct. It's about credentialing or accrediting individuals and professionally developing those individuals. Not so much in the hard skill or the soft skill, and I'm trying not to use soft skill as a word because that came up at the conference quite a bit. Something I took away from the conference was people talked about technical skills and professional skills. So technical being hard, professional being what we'd call soft skills. The WEA course is definitely about developing the individual professionally for the industry and to, I guess, help with longevity and help with career progression. And over and above going and getting your Cert 4 at a local RTO or a TAFE. And possibly, and it's definitely from what I've read and from the discussions during the conference about this particular credential, is different to a university degree and is, but not unrelated in some respects.
Yeah. I don't think I know enough about the systems here to know if how equal it is. But I will say that one thing that I found interesting coming from the States is with accreditation in the States, you constantly have to reaccredit it yourself, like for whatever you're teaching usually. So for in order to teach climbing, I had to go every 3 years. I had to go to what is it? Like I had to go to do a course to show that I could set up anchors and that I could do all this rescues and stuff like that. And whereas here, there's not as much of that, which I found it interesting, is like you get the TAFE course or the university course, but then and then it's up to the facilities that you work for to make sure that you're maintaining that, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, I'd agree that's probably pretty accurate reflection of the industry as it stands in Australia. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, no, I'd add to that. I think good organizations, I guess, make it a requirement of their staff to maintain those qualifications and competencies across whatever, technical and professional skills they're delivering. But I agree with Cherie. I think the onus on the individual and the basis for some sort of individual accreditation is perhaps not currently available in Australia. I mean, for the small people in the room, is that something people would see as an improvement, or would they just see it as more administrative red tape?
Nobody jumping in there.
I'll just make a comment. Because I think that in Australia we deal with a lot of situations which are related to state borders. And can I suggest that, to go and work in WA or to Victoria or to New South Wales from, say, the state I live in, Queensland, is a very different arrangement, because you have to get all these state-based qualifications and awards. And I would like, as someone who does freelance in a few states, I think that it would be an improvement in Australia to have that change. Have other people experienced that, and do they have a comment?
I tend to agree, Pete. Having similar trajectories in terms of experience with, just having to have a different blue card or working with children's check if you're working in another state for more than 2 weeks, in some cases becomes, quite problematic if you're an outdoor educator. And I think personal accreditation must be the future of what we're going to do in Australia, but it's going to take a lot of organization and a lot of I think this not-for-profit organization that's been around since 1977, the WEA, they do charge a premium for that service for accreditation. There's about 3 levels, but they do offer RPL, recognition of prior learning, and putting together portfolios, so you're not having to jump through the hoops as a experienced practitioner to get the endorsement that they have.
But can I suggest that as an Australian, if I went through the AEE accreditation process, then I would suggest currently in Australia, it's not going to actually give me any advantage.
Yeah. So there's two different groups. The WEA is the personal instructor accreditation program.
Right.
AEE's accreditation is for program accreditation. So
right.
I also went and looked at their.
Thank you for that qualification.
That's all right. The AEE were doing sort of a self promotion of their sort of their main major branch as a professional body representing the sector, in that they do accreditation. It was interesting within that Zoom to learn that obviously I already knew that OEG has been the first Australian organisation to actually become accredited, but there's now 2 companies in Australia additionally who are looking at accreditation at a organisational level, obviously with a view to getting something out of it that obviously they can put a metric against, whether that's lowered cost of insurance, marketing potential on an international basis. And we're not unique in, I guess it's not unique in that there's quite a few Asian-based organizations in Hong Kong and Singapore who have also gone down that pathway with AEE to get accredited. Have a look at the website is the best point of call for that. And Steve Pace is the major person there who's running the accreditation process. There's a huge amount of cost involved because apart from doing the desk audit and the paper chase across your entire organization, looking at your risk management, your processes, your policies, your program effectively, it also requires an on-site visit by up to 2 people. And that's part of an accreditation process that can take multiple years. I think big companies like OEG obviously have the funds and the drive to follow through on that process. Smaller companies, smaller operators, individual school programs may not have that. I was looking at it from a metric of how do I find a bar to measure myself in my program against, having been a solo operator within a school environment. How do I gauge what I'm doing is actually correct and is best practice outside of the Australian guidelines? As Cherie's mentioned in the chat there, what's the incentive? This was sort of mentioned last week in the Outdoors New South Wales coffee and conversation on Friday. The incentive would be around insurance costs and lowering those or stabilizing those. If you're an accredited organization, the cost they outset to actually get this up and running might offset the cost benefit of a stabilized insurance or a lower premium on a year-to-year basis. And obviously that's really dependent upon what type of organization. If you're adventure tourism, if you're a ropes course operator, if you're an outdoor provider, if you're a school. But it's definitely interesting that the Americans, our North American colleagues, have gone down this pathway many, many years ago because they saw the need to actually insure themselves from government regulation or having somebody else, whether it's insurance companies or outside interest groups coming into the sector and going, well, you guys don't have an accreditation program, therefore you're not good enough for X, Y, and Z. We're going to enforce our policies or our programs over the top of what you're doing. I've waffled on a lot about that, but it was definitely an interesting aspect, and it was part of the conference that I found really engaging in my current role, but it's very niche amongst the things that were happening there. Do we have any questions for anyone or any comments? Or Maddie, do you want to share any of your experiences of any of your workshops?
She might have run off to help some kids.
Yeah, it is a busy time. Wade, do you have any questions, or Greg?
No questions. Thank you. I appreciate that advice and your comments. Thank you.
What do you guys think is the most beneficial thing that you learned at the conference?
You want to go first, Pete?
Yeah, I'd love to, Dave. I learned that in the experiential ed community, which is worldwide and it's proved by the conference being such a successful virtual event, I think we need to collaborate and communicate across that sector using the technical resources of the internet and the World Wide Web as they exist and as they will move forward at a rate in the future. So that's the first takeaway thing. I think we seem to, I just got this sense that everyone was willing to share their information, their resources. People were continually directing me to websites, telling me to email them to get information, just talking about collaboration almost constantly, particularly in more casual conversations in GatherTown. And I guess through that chat forum, in that forum, I got lots of contacts with people throughout the experiential world, and I think that's pretty amazing. I've come away really inspired about the work we do in this sector, and that it's so positive and so needed in our society. That's me.
I probably echoed some of Pete's feelings, and I probably already reiterated, having a connection to people who speak the same language, I think, is pretty important. But by the same stead, there was one workshop where we were talking about facilitation with John Losey, and he's got a link on our webpage as well. How sometimes the way we talk about ourselves and the way we reflect on our industry and our sector sometimes alienates other people, whether that's teachers or PE teachers or other parts of the outdoor sector, because we use terminology that sounds, I don't know, just strange and different. He talked about facilitating. An outdoor program is so much different from facilitating a corporate event. It was sort of an obvious statement, but then he made some really good points about it. And so it's a really good awareness that we sometimes definitely work in isolation, and maybe that's to our detriment as a sector. We have these silos where we work, and we tend to try and talk about how great our product is and how great our outcomes can be, but then we don't actually share those really well as a sector, and that gives us an example, Cherie. It's hard to think of one, I guess, off the top of my head. But it was really just a really salient point. My takeaways again is I just love connecting with people and again meeting meeting some interesting people who are movers and shakers, and people that I've never met before who definitely have their own portal, their own niche market, but they seem to be doing really well and engaging in experiential programming in a really dynamic and diverse way, whether it's in North America or in other parts of the world. I got some contacts from some guys in Gavatown from Outward Bound Singapore, and I visited their site. Didn't meet those gentlemen at that occasion, but it was just nice to meet some instructors. And for me, that's always been the biggest issue with professional development and international conferences or national conferences here in Australia. They're just too costly, and they exclude instructors at that level from coming, engaging, sharing. And yeah, I love the fact that Maddie, who appears to be a young person working in the outdoors, was able to attend the conference because it was virtual and because it was via a reasonable cost factor. So I think my takeaways are very similar to Pete's, that we need to embrace the technology, at least in some respects, for our own national development as a sector here, if nothing else, to share resources and to continue to look at raising that bar.
That's great, David. Yeah, I only ever got to go to one conference when I was in the States, and that's because I got a scholarship, and some funding through my university for it. But other than that, I don't think I would ever be able to afford, especially as an undergrad or younger outdoor ed person, especially in the States.
Yeah, I've been looking at all the conferences in the States at the moment that are going back to face-to-face, and they're going back to their old model of it's going to be $500 US to go to a 4-day conference before you add in the airfares, the food, and the 5-star accommodation that they want you to stay at, because that's how they organize conferences. And I think the AEE might take it on that it's the goalposts have shifted in how conferences can be done and how they should be done within an experiential sector, and that we could definitely still continue to have more cost-effective and more inclusive conferences by using a Zoom platform or whatever it is. You might still want to have the people doing face-to-face, but I think the days of really expensive outpriced conferences are few and far between in a post-COVID world. But that's just my take on it, and sort of my hope that we can find more sustainable ways to network and connect, especially with the young people who are coming after me in the industry.
I definitely agree with that. I think one thing about Australia is because we're so spread out that finding more ways to connect with each other without having to actually be in the same room is really important. We've got people out in Western Australia, and it costs more money to fly out there than it does to other countries. And they've got so many good things going out there that it's sad that we can't all find a way to get together and share our experiences. So this is a great opportunity for that. I'm
where we're getting to the end of our session. Pete,
can I just make one comment? And I'll go back to, I really enjoyed people's passion for the work that we do, and pretty much everyone I talked to and everyone who presented in the workshops that I went to was just simply passionate about working in experiential education. And as I said, I've come away very inspired. As we are coming to the end of the show, and you've heard a lot from Dave and I, unless anyone has any more comments, I'm going to throw over to our American oligarch in the funchery to do a bit of a show closure and perhaps a bit of a wrap up, unless anyone else has any burning things they want to say before that. Thanks.
David, I think you had something to say.
No, I was just going to say just a big shout out to the AEE organization themselves. We had Sherry Bagley come in at 3 o'clock her time to do a promotion about the conference a couple of weeks prior to it to get more Aussies involved. And she's got a really small crew there that support about 1,700 people globally, again, over 25, 30 countries. So they do an amazing amount with very little resources. So a big shout out and thanks to allowing the Aussies to come in and take up space in Gavatown and run around like mad people into different Zooms and stuff like that. We had a great time. So and I hope to be back next year.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody who showed up. I see several new names here, so that's exciting for me, but I've also been gone for a little while taking care of my bub. But I guess I want to say thanks to the dedication of Dave and Pete for stepping up and going to this conference. I know that it puts you guys, in the middle of the night going to a conference in the US, and just shows how dedicated you guys are to the outdoor education and furthering your own skills and stuff. And it sounds like you guys learned a lot of great things while attending this conference, and a lot of good things that we can share and spread the good word for outdoor educators in Australia, because we're definitely stronger the more we talk to each other and the more we interact, and accepting the way of the future, which is a lot of times is going to be virtual. And I know for outdoor educators that tends to be outside of their wheel well. So it's gotta be part of the wheel now, definitely moving forward. So I think it's just great what you guys have done, and I really appreciate hearing about it. I really wish I could have attended, and I hope everybody here has gotten something out of this. And thanks guys, and I hope you guys have a good afternoon, and thanks for joining us inside the Outhouse.